Life has a peculiar habit of settling into familiar patterns, doesn't it? Especially once a certain stage of life arrives. Here in Okavon, my days have settled into a gentle, almost clockwork rhythm. Mornings begin with coffee on the porch swing, listening to the birds chatter among the branches of the old maple. I tend the modest garden, sometimes join a book club, or share lunch with my dear friend Martha. Quiet. Mostly predictable. My husband Tom left this world 3 years ago, and the children are grown, scattered with their own full lives far from here. So the house is largely mine now, filled with memories and the steady, soft tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway. The Hendersons next door have been neighbors for 2 decades. Martha always teases that the property lines between us are more suggestion than rule. We've borrowed sugar more times than I can count, kept an eye on each other's places during trips, and marked the big moments together. I watched their boy Ethan grow from scraped knees and leaf pile battles to those awkward high school dances, and then off to college. He was a polite child, a bit reserved, but he carried the same kind eyes as his mother, Sarah. About 6 months ago, he returned home after finishing his master's degree. I'd catch sight of him now, and then mowing the lawn or hauling in groceries for Sarah. We exchanged the usual polite greetings, "How are you, nice weather?" Nothing more. He was a grown man now, nearer 30 than 20, carrying himself with a quiet seriousness while working remotely from his childhood bedroom. The lanky teenager was gone. In his place stood someone steadier, though every so often I glimpsed a flicker of uncertainty when he thought no one noticed. So you can picture my surprise that Tuesday afternoon. I was out front, locked in battle with a stubborn patch of weeds near the mailbox, gardening gloves caked in dirt, and almost certainly a smudge on my cheek. Ethan pulled into their driveway, his aging but reliable sedan giving a little sputter as it settled. He climbed out, took his briefcase, and instead of heading straight inside, walked over to the low picket fence that marked our yards. "Afternoon, Carol," he said. His voice had deepened since I last really heard it, smooth and steady. "Hi, Ethan." "Just fighting the dandelions," I answered, trying to push a stray strand of hair aside with the back of a gloved hand and probably only making the dirt worse. He laughed, a genuine easy sound. "Looks like you're winning." He rested against the fence post, in no hurry to go in. "Actually, I was wondering," he hesitated, glanced down at his shoes, then back up. Those kind eyes held a mix of nerves and resolve. "I know this might seem out of the blue, but would you maybe like to grab a coffee sometime this week?" "My treat." I blinked. Coffee with Ethan? My thoughts scrambled. Was Sarah unwell? Did the family need something? Was this some kind of sales pitch? It felt so unexpected. "Coffee." I managed, sounding a little dazed. "Yeah," he said, a faint flush rising along his neck. "I've been wanting to ask you something, get your perspective on a situation, actually. Thought it might be easier over coffee than shouting across the fence." He offered a small, almost shy smile. "Perspective?" I asked, curiosity now outweighing the surprise. This didn't sound like a request for help or a product pitch. He wanted my thoughts. "Yeah," he repeated, easing a little once the invitation was out. "If you're not too busy, of course." I pulled off the gloves and tucked them into my apron. The request felt sincere, and honestly a touch intriguing. It wasn't every day the neighbor's grown son sought out my view on anything. Maybe the quiet routine could use a gentle disruption. "Well, Ethan," I said with a warm smile, "that's very thoughtful of you. I think I could manage that. When did you have in mind?" Relief softened his face. "Great. How about Thursday? Maybe around 10. There's that little place, the Daily Grind, down on Main Street." "The Daily Grind sounds perfect," I confirmed. "Thursday at 10 it is." "Excellent," he said, smile widening. "I'll look forward to it, Carol." He gave a small wave and headed inside, leaving me by the fence with the forgotten weeds suddenly safe for another day. My neighbor's son. Coffee. My perspective. What on earth could he want to discuss? The predictable afternoon had taken an unexpected turn. Inside, I washed the dirt from my hands and face, yet the mix of anticipation and mild bewilderment stayed with me. Thursday morning arrived wrapped in soft early autumn light that gilded everything it touched. I took a little more care getting ready than I usually would for errands. Nothing elaborate, but I chose my favorite blue knit sweater that brings out the color in my eyes, comfortable slacks, and a touch of lipstick.
Why?
I wasn't entirely sure. Perhaps it was simply the novelty of breaking the pattern. Or maybe, deeper down, I felt quietly flattered that this young man navigating the complexities of adult life thought my perspective worth seeking. The daily grind was lively, filled with the rich scent of roasted beans and fresh baking. Soft jazz drifted in the background beneath the hum of conversation. Ethan was already at a small table by the window, nursing a mug. He looked up as I approached, and that warm smile immediately put me at ease. He stood politely. "Carol, thanks for coming." "Morning, Ethan. Smells wonderful in here, doesn't it?" I slid into the chair across from him. The table was compact, creating a closeness that felt present rather than awkward. He had already ordered me a latte, exactly the way I liked it. "How did you know?" I asked, surprised. He shrugged, color rising again on his cheeks. "I might have overheard you order it once when Mom dragged me here last month." Thoughtful. I took a sip.
Perfect.
We talked easily for a few minutes about ordinary things, his parents, the unseasonably warm weather, the noisy construction down the street. It felt natural. He was a good listener, attentive, meeting my eyes in a way that felt respectful and engaged. Then he drew a deeper breath and set his mug down carefully. "So," he began, tone shifting towards seriousness, "the reason I asked you here, it's about my career path. And maybe, well, life in general." I leaned in slightly, ready to listen. "I finished my master's in software engineering," he continued, tracing the rim of his mug. "Good job, solid prospects. Everyone tells me I should be thrilled, and in a way I am. The work is challenging, but," he trailed off, looking out the window a moment. "It doesn't feel right. Is that crazy?" He turned back, expression earnest and searching. "I spend all day staring at code, solving problems logically. It pays well. My parents are proud. But at the end of the day, I feel disconnected, like I'm building things nobody really needs, or worse, things that just pull people away from what matters. There's this creative itch I've always pushed aside because it wasn't practical." He paused, hesitant. "What kind of creative itch?" I asked gently. He looked down, swirling the coffee. "Woodworking," he said almost sheepishly. "Ever since I was a kid in Dad's workshop. I love the smell of sawdust, the feel of the grain, taking a rough piece of lumber and turning it into something beautiful and useful with my own hands. I've been doing small projects in the evenings, tucked away in the garage. It's the only time I feel completely myself." He looked up, vulnerability clear. "My parents think it's just a hobby, a distraction. They worry I'll throw away a good career. And maybe they're right. But this engineering job feels like I'm wearing someone else's suit."
He sighed.
"I guess I wanted to ask you. You've seen a lot of life, Carol. You've always seemed so grounded, so content in your own skin. Is it foolish to want something more than just the practical, to follow something that feels meaningful, even if it's less secure?" I listened closely, taking in the passion that lit his face when he spoke of woodworking and the conflict warring inside him. Here was a capable young man, successful by every conventional measure, wrestling with the old tension between passion and practicality. It wasn't at all what I'd expected. I'd imagined landlord troubles or advice about a difficult colleague. This was deeper, more personal. I thought of my own life, of Tom, who had worked a steady but uninspiring accounting job for 40 years to provide for us, always dreaming of a little bookstore that never came to be. I thought of the choices I'd made, the paths taken, and the ones left behind. "Ethan," I said softly, meeting his gaze, "it's never foolish to want your life to feel meaningful. Practicality pays the bills, and that truly matters. But passion feeds the soul, and life is too short to starve your soul." He took the words in, shoulders easing a fraction. "But how do you balance it?" he asked quietly. "How do you know if you're being brave or just incredibly reckless?" "That," I admitted, "is the million-dollar question. There's no easy answer. Sometimes it's about finding a way to weave your passion in, maybe not quitting the day job right away, but carving out real time and seeing where it leads. Sometimes it's about a calculated leap. But the first step is acknowledging that what you feel is valid. That longing for something more, that creative itch, you called it, that's your intuition speaking. It's telling you something important about who you are. We talked for nearly 2 hours. He described the intricate little music boxes he carved, the deep satisfaction of restoring an old piece of furniture. I shared stories of Tom's quiet, unfulfilled dreams, and of my own rediscovery of painting after the children left home, how it had filled a space I hadn't even realized was empty. There was no awkwardness, no sense that the age difference created a barrier. It was simply two people exchanging experiences, vulnerabilities, and a shared search for meaning. He listened to me with the same respect and attention he had hoped I would offer him. He asked thoughtful questions about my painting and about how I had navigated the loneliness after Tom's passing. The conversation flowed easily, resting on a surprising foundation of mutual understanding. When we finally prepared to leave, he hesitated by the door. "Carol," he said, sincerity filling his voice. "Thank you. Really. You have no idea how much this helped." Just saying it out loud to someone who listened without judgment. "Anytime, Ethan." I smiled. And for what it's worth, I think pursuing something that makes you feel that alive is incredibly brave, not reckless. He gave me that warm smile again, the one that reached his eyes. "Maybe I'll show you some of my projects sometime if you're interested." "I'd love that," I said and meant it. Walking home under the golden autumn sun, the world felt a little brighter. The conversation replayed in my mind. It hadn't been only about woodworking or careers. It had been about connection, about being seen for who you are rather than the role you occupy. The neighbor, the widow, the engineer, the neighbor's son. Something had shifted, subtle yet significant. A simple coffee invitation had opened a door to an unexpected friendship, a connection that felt surprisingly deep and remarkably comfortable. My quiet routine suddenly carried a richer texture, a quiet sense of possibility. That coffee meeting was not a one-time event. A few days later, Ethan knocked on my door, looking slightly hesitant, holding a small, carefully wrapped box. "I finished something," he murmured, shifting his weight. "Thought you might like to see it." Inside was a jewelry box of cherry wood, smooth as silk, with intricate leaf carvings along the edges. The grain glowed warmly. It was exquisite. "Ethan, this is stunning." I breathed, running my fingers over the detailed work. "You made this?" "Yeah," he said, pride mixed with shyness. "Just finished sanding it yesterday." "It's not much, but—" "It's wonderful," I interrupted gently. "Truly. You have a remarkable talent." I invited him in, and he stayed for tea. He spoke more about his woodworking, his quiet hope of one day setting up a small workshop, perhaps custom pieces or restoration work. He showed me photos on his phone, a sturdy bookshelf, a delicate birdhouse, a rocking horse he had restored for a friend's child. Each piece held a story, a piece of him. In turn, I showed him my paintings, mostly landscapes, attempts to capture the changing light over the fields beyond town and the quiet dignity of the old oaks. He looked at them with genuine interest, asking about technique and what inspired me. He noticed details in the way I used color that few others ever had. It felt good to share that part of myself, something I usually kept fairly private. We began to settle into an easy rhythm. Sometimes he would stop by after work just to talk for a few minutes on the porch. Other times we would meet by chance at the grocery store and end up talking for 20 minutes among the produce. One crisp Saturday, we walked in the park, crunching through fallen leaves, talking about everything and nothing. Books we'd read, funny childhood memories, the way the town was changing. There were comfortable silences between us too, the kind shared only with people you feel truly at ease with. I learned more about him. He was thoughtful, observant, with a dry sense of humor that often caught me off guard and made me laugh. He worried about his parents growing older, felt a bit adrift from college friends who were settling down and starting families, and carried a quiet sensitivity beneath his calm exterior. He was no longer simply the neighbor's son. He was Ethan, a complex, interesting person finding his own way. And I realized, with a small jolt, that perhaps he saw me as more than just Carol, the nice lady next door. He saw someone with thoughts, experiences, and creative sparks of her own. One rainy afternoon, he called. "Hey, Carol, are you busy?" There was an odd note in his voice. "No, Ethan, just reading." "Everything okay?" "Sort of," he said. "I had a discussion with my dad about the woodworking. It didn't go great. He thinks I'm being irresponsible. I just could use a friendly ear if you're free." "Come on over," I said at once. He arrived damp and dejected, sinking into the armchair by the fireplace. He recounted the conversation, the familiar arguments about security, wasting his education, the disappointment in his father's voice. "He just doesn't get it," Ethan said, frustration etched on his face. "He thinks because I'm good at engineering I should love it. He doesn't understand that it feels hollow." I listened, letting him speak, offering quiet understanding rather than easy solutions. "It's hard when the people you love don't understand your dreams," I said softly. "But ultimately, Ethan, it's your life to live. Your father loves you. He's worried about you. That's where his reaction comes from. But his path isn't necessarily yours." He looked up, eyes meeting mine. "You really believe that? That it's okay to choose a different path, even if it disappoints people?" "I believe," I said firmly, "that true contentment comes from being authentic to yourself. It takes courage, and sometimes the people who love you may need time to understand, but your happiness matters." He sat quietly for a long moment, gazing into the fire I had lit earlier while rain drummed against the windows. Then he looked over at me with a different emotion, not frustration, but deep, quiet gratitude. "Thank you, Carol," he said, voice thick. "You always seem to know the right thing to say. You make things clearer." In that moment, sitting in the warm glow of the firelight, sharing a quiet understanding, the connection between us felt remarkably strong. It wasn't romantic in any conventional sense. It ran deeper than that, a meeting of minds, a shared vulnerability, a mutual respect that crossed age and circumstance. It was the simple, profound comfort of being truly heard and truly seen by another person. And that felt more unexpected, more quietly remarkable than anything I could have imagined when he first asked me for coffee. Life did not transform overnight, yet something fundamental had shifted within me, like dormant bulbs beginning to stir beneath the soil. My days still held their familiar shape, the coffee, the garden, the book club, but they carried a new layer of richness, a quiet hum of anticipation. Knowing Ethan was next door, knowing we shared this unexpected bond, made the world feel a little less predictable and a little more alive. Our friendship continued to grow organically, without pressure. We shared articles we thought the other might enjoy. He sent links about new artists or woodworking techniques. I clipped. "Pieces about local history or promising authors for him. Sarah, of course, noticed. You two seem to be getting along well." So he remarked one afternoon over the fence, a curious but warm smile on her face. "Ethan seems lighter lately." "Is a good man, Sarah," he answered honestly. "Thoughtful. We used to enjoy talking. And that was the truth. It was the simple pleasure of conversation and shared perspectives. A began seriously exploring was to bring woodworking more fully into his life. He did not quit his hobby, but he converted part of the garage into a proper workshop, carefully shown proof in it. He started taking small commissions, restoring an antique chair for another, building custom shelves for the local bookstore. Even enrolled in a weekend business course for artisans. Watching him pursue his passion, even cautiously, filled me with quiet pride, like watching a carefully tended flower finally begin to open. He often credited our conversations with giving him the courage to take those first steps. "You helped me see it wasn't an either-or situation," he told me one evening while showing me a design for a beautiful inlaid table he was planning. "I could build this slowly alongside my other responsibilities." In turn, his energy and quiet determination inspired me. He picked up my paintbrushes more often, experimented with new approaches, and even submitted a piece to the local art fair, something he never would have considered before. Our friendship was not a secret, yet it belonged to us. It lived in those stirred coffees, the quiet porch conversations, the mutual encouragement we offered each other. There was no drama, no hidden agenda. It was simply real. A testament that meaningful connections can take root in the most unexpected places, between the most unlikely people, if you remain open. Looking back, The truly remarkable part was never some dramatic event. It was the quiet miracle of forming such a deep, respectful, and mutually enriching friendship with my neighbor's son. It challenged my own assumptions about it, about relationships, about where connection can be found. Ethan taught me that wisdom is not solely the province of the old, and passion is not reserved only for the young. He reminded me that vulnerability can be a strength, and that truly listening is one of the greatest gifts we can offer another person. And perhaps, in my own way, he offered him a safe harbor, a place where he could explore his dreams without judgment, where his quieter, creative self was not merely accepted but welcomed. Our story has no grand cinematic conclusion. There was no sudden declaration or life-altering event. Instead it settled into a comfortable, enduring rhythm. We remain neighbors and friends. We still share coffee, sometimes at the daily grind, sometimes on my porch swing. He shows me his latest project, I show him my latest painting. We talk about life, its challenges and its small joys. It is an unexpected chapter, one I could never have written or predicted, yet one I hold dear. It taught me that growth does not stop at a certain age, and that the most profound experiences often arrive quietly, disguised as a simple invitation for coffee. It reminded me to look beyond surfaces, to stay open to connection, and to value the quiet beauty of friendship built on mutual respect and genuine understanding. And that, I believe, is quietly extraordinary in itself.